I found myself on the street with nothing but the clothes on my back, feeling hollow, knowing they had no idea every dollar they'd ever spent on that house had come from me. They simply believed their own child wasn't worth keeping around. When the front door slammed behind me, I realized they never knew the truth, or maybe they never wanted to. A part of me always hoped they'd figure it out, that they'd see beyond their own bitterness and pride to the quiet sacrifices I made. This house, the ivy-choked walls under my fingertips, wasn't just a place. It was a lifeline I'd worked tirelessly to maintain, one withheld from them as a sign of my love. And yet now, standing on the icy pavement, their shadows wrapped in the dim glow from the window, I come face to face with the cold reality. They believed they were banishing me from their lives, never realizing they were mangling the gift I'd given them in silence. I was lost in the echo of that door, in the broken pieces of my heart scattered against the night's silence. Dawn seeped through the kitchen window, painting the dull linoleum in muted gold, as I moved with mechanical precision, frying eggs with the kind of care that only comes with practice. The sizzling of the pan mingled with the soft hum of the radio, almost a lullaby in the quiet of the morning. This was my sanctuary, these small rituals that demanded nothing more than presence. Moments where the weight of concealed truths didn't press so heavily upon me. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee curled its way into my senses, a bitter comfort. I set the table, each clink of ceramic onward a reinforcing note in the symphony of my morning routine. Outwardly, everything was perfectly orchestrated, an act that played the same script every day, unbeknownst to anyone else. But beneath this surface, I knew better. I knew the ticking clock was winding down, the unspoken secrets that slept under the same roof as I did. It was during the mundane quick-step between sink and stove that I noticed it, a cream-colored envelope peering from the pile, like an accusation. My name scrawled in bold letters, the underlined emphasis a slap against my anonymity. I swept it up, thumb brushing across the papery film, curiosity tethered expertly with dread. The world blurred as I opened it, eyes skimming through the lines faster than they could focus. Words like overdue and final notice screamed for attention, each formulated threat etched sharply across my consciousness. My heart rebelled, pounding with the force of unshed panic, each beat a reminder of the equilibrium I protected them from discovering. This was the letter of debt, not a surprise to me, but to them, it could fracture the world I held together with tenuous grip. A debt accrued on a home sold to them as safe haven, except that the haven sat precariously on an unsteady foundation. Foundations that money borrowed from shadowy corners helped keep upright. My decision, once rationalized as protection, felt unbearably selfish now, standing there with the undeniable truth in hand. My fingers tightened involuntarily, crumpling the edges of the paper as I contemplated the mornings yet to come. Would they remain tranquil, a refuge from the chaos swirling unseen? Or would this revelation unravel not only the tapestry of lies, but the very fabric of family I stitched together by tooth and nail? The smell of crisping eggs tugged me back, but the charm of ordinary mornings slipped away. I felt naked, stripped clean of my pretenses, exposed not by choice, but by inevitability. Fragile family ties dangled precariously on the brink of understanding mutually withheld until now. The truth, untethered and merciless, crouched silently, waiting for its moment to shatter our illusions. And maybe, just maybe, standing amidst the shattered fragments, we might find our way back to something real, something honest, just not yet. Each bite tasted like shards of glass, my retorts swallowed, dull daggers in my throat. I sat at the breakfast table, sunlight filtering through the kitchen window like a half-hearted blessing on another ordinary day. The sound of the utensils clinking on plates, my mother's habitual morning humming, and the newspaper rustling in my father's hands created a fragile orchestration of normalcy that felt unbearable in its banality. God, the bills for your education, my father said, not even bothering to look up from the financial section. I'm starting to think they're useless as pouring money down a drain. His words hung in the air, slicing through the clatter, and I saw my mother's hand pause mid-scramble on her plate. My chest tightened, a familiar noose of frustration and hurt cinching around my heart. I focused on my eggs, pushing them around with my fork, trying to find some anchor in their runny yolks. Dad? I started slowly, but the sound of my own voice seemed to surprise me more than him. He simply sighed, turning a page with exaggerated patience. "It's more than just expenses," I continued, though my voice quivered as I wrestled the words free. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic," he replied dismissively, never sparing a glance, and I felt my mother's eyes flicker to me, a silent plea to let this go, to not make a scene. But a scene was exactly what it had always been. Our lives, a perpetual play where my feelings were mere shadow characters, given no story of their own. The unfairness of it all burned in my throat, but I could taste the scorch of futility in any words I might throw, knowing they would simply evaporate in his indifference. So I sat, chewing on my protests and grievances like tough sinew, ineffectively, resentfully silent. My father droned on about something else, some vacuous work anecdote, and I nodded along, my own complicit smile offered like a damaged bomb to his casual derision. In that moment, the vision of my sacrifices, every late-night study session, each shiver under pressure to perform, hung over me, my ghostly gown of silent effort. His words, throwing it all to the winds as if my future were mere pennies tossed into a well. Yet, I remained mute, playing the poised role I'd too long rehearsed, neither disrupting their ignorant peace nor escaping its numbing embrace. As the clock ticked quietly on, an indifferent arbiter in this tableau of strained calm, I swallowed hard, keeping the broken pieces of myself carefully hidden. If emotional truth had weight, I was sure it would break this table into splinters, an eruption of all things unspoken. But I clothed myself in silence, bittersweet and brittle, watching the surface maintain its illusory peace. And so the morning wore on, each tick echoing a question I couldn't face, a choice between enduring this graceless veneer or finally tearing it apart to find something more than polite, futile words around a breakfast table. The door creaked open with a reluctance that felt almost deliberate, as if even the room itself was hesitant to welcome me back. My old room, now just a pathetic echo of its former self, stood there, a graveyard for forgotten memories and discarded junk. I hesitated on the threshold, the smell of stale air and neglect hitting me all at once. The walls, once covered with posters and photos of a life brimming with dreams, were now bare, except for a few yellowed flecks of tape that refused to let go. Dust coated every inch like the memories they'd chosen to ignore, as if my existence was a mere ghost among their possessions. I stepped inside, feeling the soft crunch of debris underfoot, a graveyard shift for all that was once bright in here. Each step took me deeper, both into the room and my own regret. I caught sight of the old bookshelf in the corner, now slumped over with the weight of disused boxes and papers, a wobbly relic sick under the strain. My fingers brushed against a tattered journal perched precariously on top, faded ink and heartfelt scribbles now nothing more than meaningless hieroglyphs to anyone but me. I flipped it open, the pages releasing little clouds of dust into the air, pastel reminders of nights spent pouring my heart out in a world that hadn't listened, didn't care. As I sifted through the remnants, an old soccer trophy knocked against my shin, its once brilliant shine now dulled. Back then, holding that trophy in the glow of a spotlight, I felt like anything was possible, invincible even. But now, it was just another object lost in the clutter, forgotten by all but me. I left it where it fell, too heavy with the memories I couldn't afford to carry. Boxes of old schoolwork and forgotten clothes lay haphazardly piled in the closet like an archaeological dig of unremarked ambition. As I reached into a box labeled miscellaneous, my hand touched a frayed stuffed rabbit with one button eye poking out. Holding it close for a brief moment, the worn smell of childhood innocence mingled with the staleness of missed opportunities. The room, much like my place in their lives, no longer belonged to me, if it ever had. Objects that once defined me had been swallowed by the encroaching tide of irrelevance. I couldn't help but feel like an intruder in my own past, sifting through artifacts that spoke in hushed, skeptical voices. A haunting reminder that you can never truly return to a place that's moved on without you. As I turned to leave, abandoning the dusty archives of a life that didn't seem mine anymore, the door creaked again, closing with a soft click behind me. My room, like my family's memories of me, was left in the dark, hidden away, out of sight and out of mind. A burden, I echoed, my voice a stranger's, fierce and unyielding. I'm the reason you're still under this roof. The words hung between us like charged electricity, crackling in the suffocating silence of our small living room. His face, etched with years of disappointments and anger, twisted into something almost unrecognizable, a portrait of blame and bitterness. I could feel it, the heat rising off my skin, the pounding in my chest like a thunderous drumbeat as everything I'd buried inside me pushed to the surface, boiling over. He didn't move, not immediately. His eyes locked onto mine, twin orbs of judgment and resentment. The silence stretched, taut as a wire, as if the world outside had ceased to exist, every molecule of air in the room charged with unspoken accusations. Finally, he broke it, his voice low and sharp, slicing through the tension. "Don't you dare twist this," he spat, his tone venomous, his words yet another slash against the insulation I'd carefully wrapped around my heart for so long. "All this time, I've carried this family while you just—" His sentence trailed off into a dismissive wave, a gesture that spoke more than any words could encapsulate. I flinched, the gesture striking the sore spots inside me that were already raw and bleeding. A familiar bitterness welled up, mingling with the hurt and the fury until it erupted in a torrent of words I'd held back for what felt like lifetimes. "You think you're the only one who put something on the line?" I shot back, each word propelled by the unforgiving truth behind it. "Do you even see what you've done to us?" To me, he opened his mouth to retaliate, but I didn't let him. This was my moment, the culmination of every late night spent reeling, the countless days choking on unvoiced screams. "I took care of everything when you couldn't get out of bed," I hurled at him, hardly recognizing my shaking voice, its tremble betraying the fire fueling me. "All the things you refused to face." The room spun, my vision clouded with unshed tears and the weight of all the unsaid things crashing down around me. But it was too far gone, the dam thoroughly breached, the flood unstoppable. I felt relief in the honesty, despite how destructive it might be. The truth raced forward, neither a weapon nor a shield, but simply the truth, a blazing wildfire tearing through years of built-up kindling. He flinched, a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, shading his eyes, fleeting hesitation before he cloaked himself again in the practiced armor of bitterness. "And look where that's gotten you," he retorted, almost a whisper now, the fight fading just a fraction, yet his words reverberated with a dull ache. I shook my head, the enormity of the moment overshadowing the confines of years ruled by silence. "At least I see it for what it is," I murmured, my voice quieter, as if suddenly drained, the storm briefly abating to reveal the wreckage left in its wake. The battle had shifted, not ended, but the air seemed lighter. This wasn't closure, far from it, but it was honest, and for now, that would have to be enough. The silence presses against my skin, a suffocating weight that's both a relief and a curse. I've done it. I've said the words. They're hanging heavy in the room, swirling like smoke that chokes every hint of light. The air is thick with the echoes of my confession, and for a moment, I think I might drown in this stifling quiet. My mother's eyes lock onto mine, an abyss of disbelief. Her denial rockets out, a desperate plea clinging to the fringes of her voice. "No, that can't be true," she blurts out, her words staccato and sharp, as if each syllable is a lifeline she refuses to let go. But I can see it. The wavering flicker behind her eyes alludes to something deeper, something darker. A recognition held at arm's length, an unraveling she can't yet bear to accept. Around us, the room seems to expand and contract, breathing with a life of its own. I hear the tick of the old clock, its rhythm suddenly invasive, marking each passing second as the truth I've unleashed whirls around us. I see my father, frozen like a statue carved out of shattered expectations. His jaw tightens, the muscles ripple beneath the skin as if he's grinding through the unthinkable, grappling with the betrayal whispered between the lines of what I've said. Their faces, once familiar terrain, now shift landscapes, distorted by hurt and burgeoning comprehension. I feel like an intruder in this space, as if my presence alone is a catalyst for what slips shadow-like across their features. My heart pounds mercilessly in my chest, syncopating with the erratic drumming of doubt and dread mingling within me. "What have you done?" my mother whispers, her voice barely audible, yet it slices through the air, raw and bleeding. The words aren't for the situation, they're meant for me, a question igniting with accusation and anguish. In her gaze, I find a mirror, reflecting my own fears twisted by her sense of betrayal. Tension wraps itself around us, a vice squeezing tighter. I want to say something, anything to pull us back from this brink, but my throat has closed up, sealed by the enormity of what I've unleashed. Desperation claws its way to the surface, mingling with regret, a virulent concoction pooling in the corners of my eyes. This was meant to be a liberation, a severing from the chains of deceit, yet all I see is a chasm widening between us. And there's a sadness there too, one that eradicates the room's familiarity. It signals the shift from what we were to what we will inevitably become. Their eyes flicker, questions searching for the space they vacate, reshaping the very earth beneath their feet. In that moment, it's clear there's no going back, no redeeming innocence lost. As I stand there, the echo of my truth collapses the space where comfort used to reside, leaving an indelible fracture. The zipper's snarl echoes in the quiet room, a reminder of how empty everything has become. Each item I fold and lay into the suitcase is tied to a memory that clings stubbornly like a ghost from another life. With every shirt and book, I'm reliving moments, excavating pieces of me I wish weren't so buried in the wreckage I've left behind. Outside my door, their hushed voices drift in, cutting through the still air. My mom's voice, brittle but trying to hold steady, threads through the walls. My dad's replies, heavier, laced with a frustration that used to be reserved for scenes of lost car keys and burnt dinners. Now it's because of me and the crack that splintered our carefully framed family photo. I sit back, fingers brushing over the fabric, tracing the seams like I'm trying to stitch this moment into something that makes sense. Stepping out of the image they've pictured for me feels like tearing pages from a beloved book. But I can no longer pretend to fit the shape they've always wanted, the daughter they almost had. The suitcase lid closes with a reluctant sigh, latching like I'm sealing away a part of myself. Perhaps the obedient daughter, or maybe just the illusion of her. A thin layer of dust along the table edge catches my attention, a testament to how this room has been frozen in anticipation, waiting for this decision to thaw it. Their argument rises in an unresolved crescendo, words punctuated by pauses where solutions should be. My mother's plea rides on the edges, tempered with rebellion against any outcome she hasn't scripted herself. My dad's responses feel resigned, almost like he's sorting through his own defeat. It's all because of the truth they never wanted to hear. Grabbing the suitcase handle, its coolness steadies a tremor I didn't notice before. I pause, letting my heart beat even, savoring this final moment of maybe being their little girl. This room, the scene of so many nights filled with laughter, dreams, and even silent tears, now feels like a husk of its former self, hollowed by goodbye. My footsteps are a lament as I walk through the familiar hallway, where countless whispers of my past cling to the plaster. It's strange how clarity and sorrow blend seamlessly when there's nothing left to grasp onto. The voices cease abruptly as I step into the light of the living room. They're there, locked in a tableau of tension and unspoken words. My chest tightens, and I force my gaze to hold his and hers in turn, feeling the weight of the future pressing down. Then, I speak, each word measured with a grave tenderness that I didn't expect to find. I love them, despite everything, and it's this love I cling to, promising silent reconciliation somewhere beyond this fractured moment. With the click of the door, I step beyond the threshold, carrying both hope and the heartache of leaving them behind. I lingered for a moment, my hand resting on the cold metal of the doorknob, the echo of the argument still vibrating between us. The air seemed to thicken with every second. Each breath felt heavy, like inhaling through a cloth soaked in regret. My parents stood uncertainly, tangled in the silence that stretched outward like a chasm. My fingers twitched, hesitant to leave because of their pained expressions, the search for something I wasn't sure they could ever find. We never knew. My mom began, her voice a fragile whisper. The words hung there, deflated, as if the act of saying them had stolen all their strength. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, reflecting the overhead light in a soft, mournful glow. I watched her, searching her face for something that resembled understanding, but felt instead a quiet void where empathy should have lived. My father cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly from one foot to the other. It seemed to take every ounce of his willpower to meet my gaze. His brow was furrowed, lines etched deep from years of words spoken too late, from choices left to fester. We thought. He faltered, the sentence fragmenting in the cold space between us. A pause, thick and palpable, stretched wider, threatening to swallow any connection we might still salvage. I found my voice, raw and bitter, emerging from the depths of a resentment I had worn as armor for so long. You thought I'd come back and everything would just be okay? Each word was a stone thrown into a calm pond, rippling outward, disturbing the fragile peace they were attempting to cultivate. My mother took a step forward, her hand extended, fingers trembling slightly, hungry for contact or closure. Please, we didn't mean. The plea was unfinished, punctuated by a soft, involuntary sob that sliced through the lingering tension like a blade. I took a step back, each movement intentional, creating space between the three of us. It's not that easy, I muttered, feeling the weight of old wounds and new realizations pressing down on my shoulders, invisible but impossibly heavy. The room seemed to close in, the walls moving subtly, breathing with the unease that filled every inch, every moment. I longed for absolution, for a whisper of hope that all was not lost, but their attempts at reconciliation felt like grasping at smoke, tangible for a heartbeat and then gone. Just give me time, I finally said, the words coming out rough and unpolished, revealing the raw edges of my resolve. Somewhere deep inside, I wanted to reach across this ravine, to pull them close, to let their words soothe the ache, but that instinct was wrapped too tightly in fear, the fear of exposing myself again only to be torn apart. My hand let go of the doorknob as I turned. Their silence followed me, a ghostly specter, as I stepped into the corridor, leaving behind echoes of apologies lingering unspoken, hopes suspended in a space where time seemed to hesitate. The air outside felt different somehow, sharper, as if the chill had seeped through more than just my skin, digging directly into my bones. I stood at the edge of the driveway, house stretching behind me like some sentient, waiting entity. Early morning frost painted a thin, crystalline coat over the mailbox, and I could hear the crunch underfoot, tangible and deliberate. Each step, though a whisper, felt like a grand declaration against the indifferent quiet of the street. I reached for the envelope tucked securely inside my coat, its edges stiff against my chest. It weighed heavier than it should. It's just paper, after all, and yet it carried everything one would never read between the lines. Pressing it flat once more, I lingered, my thumb brushing across the crease where my truth lay folded. More than a simple deed, it was an unspoken dialogue, a final attempt at expressing a love that endured despite everything. The mailbox stood a few paces ahead, its steel reflecting the creeping dawn. I could feel my heart thump evenly, each beat echoing the silent mantra, "This is right, this is right," even as doubt flickered at the edge of my resolve. I approached it slowly, the way one might approach the final scene on a stage, aware of the stakes but free from the need to perform anymore. My fingers lingered over the envelope before I slipped it in, a final tether released. Withdrawing, I sensed a looseness in my chest, a crack in the long-standing pressure that had become an unwanted ally. The deed left in the mailbox was that, an act of love veiled in the cloak of practicality, a transition from one life to what lay beyond, unfettered by the need to hold on. It was my parting gift, carrying words I'd never said but needed them to feel. Drawing in a deep breath, I retracted my hand, the subtle warmth of earlier contact fading into the morning's chill. A breeze rustled the sparse branches around me, a soft applause for the curtain falling on this chapter. As I turned away, the weight, monstrous moments ago, began to flake off. Tentative hope whispered from newly healed seams. Behind me, the house was a silhouette against the brightening sky, indifferent yet strangely familiar, an old friend who had heard all, known all, and now stood silent in mutual understanding. For a moment, I paused, gazing back as if waiting for some reciprocal acknowledgement, some small nod. But there was nothing, just an empty mailbox settled amidst suburbia's careful symmetry. The road ahead stretched limitless and undefined, the horizon still wrapped in its early morning haze. I slid my hands into my coat pockets, savoring the comforting plush of the lining against my chilled fingers. Each step away felt purposeful, resounding with the slow realization of freedom, like the soft rhythm of a song that had been quieted for too long, finding its silent but certain crescendo. My footsteps receded into the distance, leaving the past tidily folded in an envelope behind me, as it belonged, carrying with me the possibility of yet untold stories awaiting at the next turn. The driveway stretched behind me like a frayed lifeline cut too soon, the echoes of every stifled goodbye reverberating in the cool morning air. With my back turned, each step pulled me farther from a life woven tightly with threads of love and expectation, the entangling kind that both holds and strangles. The gravel crunched softly beneath my sneakers, a fragile rhythm matching the thud of my heart, synced with the uncertainty that now painted my horizon. I could almost feel their eyes on me, my family's gazes, heavy with a familiar cocktail of concern and disappointment, lingering like shadows consigned to haunt. The memory of their hesitant hugs, as carefully measured as they were full of unspoken fears, tugged at the edges of my conscience. But I couldn't look back, couldn't allow the magnetic pull of what once was to anchor me in a past I no longer fit into. The world beyond the driveway beckoned with a promise of liberation, an intoxicating call of unbounded secrets I yearned to explore. The air felt sharper, crisper, a sensory clarity that whispered of possibilities untethered from yesterday's weight. For the first time, I could breathe deeply, unencumbered by the need to justify, to explain, to please. With each step towards the sidewalk, I felt the invisible chains of my family's expectations loosen, their grasp weakening, and my own doubts gradually dissipating into the ether. The biting edge of the morning breeze against my skin was a baptism of sorts, an initiation into an uncertain future. It whispered promises of a self I had only dreamed about, sporadically glimpsed between pages of books and the dim glow of sleepless nights. The chaotic symphony of the street gradually welcomed me, cars whooshing by, snatches of conversations blending with laughter, life on its unapologetic course. I merged with the thrumming pulse of this living entity, part of it yet apart, an outsider yearning to belong. Despite the hollow still gnawing at my insides, awareness slowly dawned. I was here, I was moving. I was alive. As the sidewalk unfolded before me, an expanse of concrete veins stretching into the unknown, I realized I was not wholly abandoned. The ghosts of my family's love, though bittersweet, lingered with me, a reminder of sacrifice in exchange for authenticity. Their love was imperfect, imperfectly mine, yet it was still a part of who I had become. The future waited with patient indifference, unfurling gently at my feet. With each step, I shed fragments of my former self, embracing the tremors of nascent hope. The world seemed broader with every inhale, each exhale a testament to newfound strength. I hesitated before the crosswalk, the usual clatter of thoughts slowly quieting into a single, lucid whisper, the courage to begin. The light changed, and I stepped forward, my heart whispering secrets only the future could promise. Each footfall a vow to explore what lay beyond, in the spaces where I might find not just survival, but meaning.